Welcome everyone to our new Expo Fall Summit Center. We normally host obviously in Sunnyvale, so look forward to hearing everyone's feedback. We are doing some renovations at our other facility. So I'll talk to you just very briefly before we get to the stars of the show, the startups, about our program. For me, this is a very exciting program. Having just started it 18 months ago, we had the vision of becoming the world's leading program for the digital transformation of end-to-end supply chain. So as you can see, we're working with partners all the way from chemical companies to oil and gas to steel, mining, all the way to the end of the supply chain where items are delivered at the doorstep to someone's home. So a trend we see across the industry is that there needs to be a lot of collaboration across the supply chain, that large corporations and kind of key players in the supply chain need to work together to be able to properly pilot and work with new technologies or startups. So that was kind of the vision of our program, and I definitely think we've succeeded in building the world-leading program for supply chain and logistics innovation. Just looking at the partners, and thank you all for coming here and supporting us. The largest maritime companies like Maersk sitting here in the front. There we go. The largest rail companies, the majority of the Class 1 railroads across North America are all here. We have the largest trucking companies, air cargo with FedEx, DHL, Lufthansa Cargo. Warehousing, obviously, Prologis owns $80 billion or more worth of warehouses. And how can we get everyone to not just talk about their traditional relationships in the industry, but really work on these new innovations across the supply chain? So today we is kind of the conclusion of, or the graduation for the startups we accepted into batch 3 of this program. This is the process that we go through. So we've selected an industry leader kind of from each part of the supply chain, TJX being a leading retailer, Prologis being the largest warehouse owner, DHL being the largest logistics company. So they can select the startups to become part of this program. We reviewed thousands of startups with our team worldwide to be accepted. We sent top 100 lists to our corporate partners who then met the startups in person at our selection day, where 35 startups presented. And now 22 startups have been selected. We gave them all the resources, introductions that Plug and Play can provide. And we put them through this program. And a lot of them have done pilots with the corporate partners. A lot of them have had major successes. Project 44, for example, just raised $50 million, which is pretty incredible. And there's been a lot of kind of meaningful relationships and large, not just pilots, but meaningful implementations through some of our startups that have happened throughout the program. So this is what I really like this year is kind of that we became a very global program. We're not just here in Silicon Valley, but we have people who flew in worldwide to participate today. This is just a representation of the startups that we reviewed for this program that made it onto our top 100 list. As you can see, a lot of them are in US, about half of them, but we really have startups that we're looking at all over the world through using Plug and Play's global network. The offices, or the dots you can see in white, those are actually new supply chain offices that we have people on the ground working to work with corporate partners that, for example, can't make the trip to Silicon Valley. So we launched an office in Berlin for covering European market. We launched an office in China if you're very focused on the Chinese market, and also Singapore focusing on the rest of the Asia-Pacific region. So we now have 4 kind of offices that we're really continuing to build this ecosystem. I'm very excited. In 2018, we've really, not only on the startup side, but on the corporate side, we've also gone very global. We have partners flying in today, like JD.com, who you'll hear from shortly from China, who joined us, Yamato, who's a very active partner coming from Japan, who you'll also hear from. Very excited to have L'Oreal just joined very recently as an ecosystem member in the program, who's already engaged in a number of deal flows, obviously a French company, working with their New York office. Very excited to announce Ryder as one of the newest anchor partners, as we want to get a leading trucking company as an anchor partner. Having them kind of work with us for the first year and become an anchor was really great. And then TJX, who was actually a retail partner for 2 years at Plug and Play, just upgraded or just also joined as an anchor partner in supply chain. Kansas City Southern, who also became an Ecosystem Plus member instead of an ecosystem member, and then Braskem, who just joined, who's one of the largest petrochemical companies in the world and leading company in Brazil, coming all the way from Brazil. So it's really cool to have everyone fly here, to have this the one kind of meeting place worldwide for the kind of industry to gather and work on these innovations. And here's a video of the Prologis CEO who just did an event with us the other week.
Today, e-commerce represents about 10% of total retail sales in the U.S., more in some emerging economies actually. And I think that it's going to grow to a much bigger percentage, and more categories of retail are now going online. So I think it's a business that it's in its infancy, and the runway is very long, and we're very excited to play a role in it. And I think the biggest trends in that business that affect us is that the supply chain is getting faster. People want immediacy. They want to order stuff and get it right away, and they want lots of choice. So the larger number of SKUs and the less patient customer with respect to getting their goods means that logistic facilities need to come closer to these major urban areas, which of course plays right into our strategy. So we're really excited. We had a good business before e-commerce, but e-commerce has been a tremendous tailwind, which has taken our good business and turned it into a great business. If you were to look at the list of our top 25 customers, you'd walk away with a couple of conclusions. Number one, it's an extremely diversified set of customers. The top 25 represent about 20% of our revenues, and our largest customer, Amazon, represents about 3.5% of our revenues. So it's a very diversified customer base. But as a result of its diversification, it gives us a window into many businesses around the world, and all the players that are active in the supply chain business, including DHL, most of the large 3PLs, and pretty much anybody who's in the business of moving boxes from point A to point B. And we are most useful to those customers that need to expand their business quickly on a global scale. That their needs are more than one building here or one building there. And we find, as being part of the plug-and-play ecosystem in real estate and in logistics supply chain, we have better access to those customers, and our dialogue with those customers happens at a much more strategic level with people who are in charge of innovation in our company and their companies. And it's no longer about a real estate negotiation, but it's more about how do we grow our businesses better together. The reason we were very interested to work with Plug and Play is first a personal one. I'd known Saeed Hamidi for about 50 years and had a lot of confidence in his vision and his abilities to execute on that vision. But there was a really good business reason for it too. We're headquartered in Silicon Valley, so it wasn't because we didn't have access to these technology companies and these startups. So we're very close to this ecosystem. We have a lot of friends that are involved in the business, et cetera, et cetera. But we thought, even with those advantages, even with the advantage of being located here, it was really important to work with Plug and Play to even expand our universe of companies that we were exposed to, and more importantly, help these companies get to scale and become successful much faster than they would otherwise. So we'll see if it works, but I'm pretty confident that it will.
Okay, great. So we do collect statistics on this program. As you can see, the partners have grown each program, which is great. 100% of the partners have renewed in the last 18 months, which we're very proud of. The startups, we accepted this batch or 22, which you'll see very shortly. The pilots kind of increase all the time. as well as office hours, introductions to VCs. Some of the startups, for example, Schoof, in our first program, we introduced to Kleiner Perkins, who invested $4 million, which was very kind of meaningful. So these are kind of the statistics, and we don't have all the statistics yet for today in the batch 3, because this is actually one of the most important days where a lot of you corporate partners are able to meet with the startups, and I'm sure there will be many meaningful engagements, pilots that will still result. These pilots and engagements don't happen overnight. So we're still tracking these. These are some of the trends that we see in the industry from surveying kind of the supply chain partners. Things like AI and machine learning or predictive analytics, how can they be applied to the supply chain? How can you use smart warehousing to better optimize kind of in the warehouse and your distribution? And there's a major shortage in trucking, in warehouse workers. So how can we recruit some of these blue-collar workers to actually enjoy their jobs or want to work inside of driving a truck or inside of a warehouse? So these are just some of the technologies we look at from blockchain, where we want to have very specific use cases, not just we have a blockchain, but what are they solving in the supply chain? So we're continuously evolving. And then last, I just wanted to mention, these are some of the things that it takes to some of our most successful partners. So DHL and Prologis had a great event yesterday, and they're both very engaged partners. And I think they have all the right things in line. So having a senior executive, in the case of DHL, they brought the top 70 executives to Plug and Play and saw some of the startups locally in the area, all the way from Germany, to kind of experience this culture. You can see the CEO, Frank Appel. So we want to have the time commitment of and at least support of the senior executives. We want to have a champion fully dedicated to this program who can at least give 10% of their kind of job and focus on working with Plug and Play in the startups. And then obviously having business units pulling, giving specific challenges for technology that they can solve. So I just wanted to thank all the partners for their time, most importantly, for participating in this program. I know you're all representing very large corporations, and we want to make sure this is valuable. So, and then of course the startups, congratulations for being accepted, and we're looking forward to many pilots and successful engagements with all of you. So thank you very much. I'll pass it back to Harvey, who will get to the rest of the show.